Okay, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday here at Think Tech, and that means in the 1 to 2 block we do Life in the Law, one of our favorite shows because there are so many good lawyers around. We have to explore the Bar Association and all the lawyers in Honolulu. It's an important industry. Today, Jeff Grad and Jeremy Grad, you may wonder their name is the same. That's because they are related. Jeff is the father and Jeremy is the son, and their firm is called the Grad Law Firm, which is perfect. And we're calling this law practice, semicolon, a family affair. And our alternative title for it is keeping the firm in the family. So let me take appearances. Mr. Grad, Mr. Jeff Grad, would you appear, please?
Well, I know it's confusing, but a lot of people get us confused. I'm actually the father, and Jeremy is actually the son. We've been in law practice for about 7 years, and I've been in practice in various permutations for 35 or 40 years. I've worked as a solo, I've worked in a partnership, I've worked in-house for a corporation, and I worked for a large firm. But the most fun, I must say, has been since my mid-60s when my son, who just graduated law school, Jeremy, joined me. Our practice is primarily real property, real estate development, and we represent brokers and people of that ilk.
Thank you, counsel. You may sit.
Thank you.
Appearances?
Jeremy Grad. I'm the son, and graduated from UH Law School in '08 and joined my dad's firm shortly thereafter.
Okay, and the firm is the Grad Firm. It's in, the Davies Pacific Center, where it has been forever?
Since the early 70s, that's right. I think where you were during your law days.
Yeah, I think we moved in around the same time.
That's right.
70, we were there 74. I think the building was built in 73.
Yeah.
But who's counting?
Yeah, that's right.
So, it's just really interesting, and let me roll it back a little bit and say, at some point in your life, Jeremy, you had the idea you're going to be a lawyer, okay? Now, some lawyer parents will discourage you from doing that. They will say, Jeremy, don't be a lawyer. Oh, don't ever do it. And some lawyer parents will say, no, do it, let's keep it in the family. What did you get when you were a kid?
There wasn't a one way or the other. There wasn't any pushing it towards being a lawyer or away from it. And I think that was probably helpful.
Yeah. So why did you go to law school and take this career?
That's a good question. I mean, after undergraduate, I took a year off. I had a chance to work with him a little in the practice, see what he did day to day. And I found that, I liked it. I could see myself doing it. And I could see myself learning a lot from him.
Just wondering if you had a modus operandi going there, Jeff, when you invited your son to come in on weekends and the like.
Well, I don't know about the weekends, because I don't remember him coming in on any weekend, but yeah, I mean, in undergraduate school, he was pre-med with the idea that maybe he'd become a doctor. We always needed a doctor in the family. And I don't know exactly when that change was made, but probably during that year between college and law school. And yeah, he came to the office and we walked around downtown Honolulu, looked at some of the buildings that I had participated in the development of, and I think that was pretty intriguing work, and it was sort of fun, and he's smart enough to figure out exactly what we had done and done wrong.
He probably, correct me if I'm wrong, I just want to sort of make a guess here, but one of the elements at play is that you saw that your father was having a good time, that he liked what he did, that the people around him liked what he did, and that the law practice was, it worked. It worked as a lifestyle. It worked as a way to, to stay in charge of the family and so forth.
Definitely, and I think his law practice worked for him. It's different with bigger firms, right? Versus having your own firm and doing your own thing.
Well, that actually goes to my next question. So you get out, what school did you go to?
Undergraduate,
Yeah,
Pomona College,
okay, and law school?
UH.
Okay, so you get out of law school, or you're on the way out of law school, and you have to decide what area you're gonna do. You decide it's not medical malpractice, that's out, or medical defense malpractice, that's out. You decide, real estate wouldn't be too bad. You just make this decision. Why did you make that decision?
Again, I could see how much I could learn from my dad, and it was really interesting, the projects he'd show me. And I think that's just, where it swayed me in that direction. I did work for a firm during the summers, and I was involved in medical malpractice
Really?
cases. Yeah, I was.
Okay.
And other types of litigation. And I worked in the courts as well, federal district court. But I thought, real estate it's really important in Hawaii. Obviously, we got a finite supply of it, and he knows what he's doing. And
Most of the time.
Most of the time, and it was interesting.
We got great candor on this show. We really bring people out and tell you exactly how they feel. So when you made the decision, did you also, at the same time you made the decision that you were going to go with your father's firm, or were there two separate decisions there?
I think there were two separate decisions there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but if you hadn't come with me, then you're required to submit writing samples. You'd have to go through interviews, and I said that wouldn't be a condition to his employment in our firm, and I think that may have been the winning argument. So,
No writing samples?
no writing samples.
What a break.
Yeah, it's a real break, I'll tell you.
So you wanted this to happen. I mean, at this point in the development of your firm, the arrival of Jeremy, the availability of Jeremy to join you,
Well,
that was
yeah.
the right moment. Yeah.
Well, I think so, because, like a lot of us were in our mid-60s about that time, and that's a time where you want to, you don't want to be doing all of the day-to-day type of work. It's proper for an associate, so it was a really good time if I wanted to keep the firm to have an associate. And, if you go and hire an associate, you're never sure about that associate.
Well, you're sure that it's a fractional possibility.
Yeah, well, it's very possible that associate or a partner may leave you, and maybe it's not going to work out with the clients. You just don't know. So that's a risk, and so I think it's just because I'm adverse to risk. I think that that would be one reason for looking to a family member as opposed to a third-party person as an associate or even as a partner.
Yeah, you knew what you were getting that way.
Well, I've had partners over the years, and it's worked out, variously, but no question about it being a risk.
Well, let's spend a moment and dwell on the issue, the concept of solo practice. You were in solo practice at the time Jeremy came over. What is solo practice when you're hitting 60? There must be thoughts of succession all day long. When you go on a trip, you got to make arrangements.
Yeah.
Anything happens, you have to make arrangements, and those arrangements have a certain risk attached to them while you're gone.
No question about it. I think being a solo is, you're leading the band, and you've got to do the day-to-day problems of your firm. You're working on the books and the records and the accounting and the computers and all the things that really are above and beyond the law practice. The law practice itself has got some high points, but it's also got some, I wouldn't call them drudgery necessarily, but they had to be done. There was no one else to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of us as solos, we do have good paraprofessionals working for us, and I always was lucky to have a good paraprofessional. But yeah, I was looking around for someone to come in and take some of the challenges off my plate.
It's interesting that in solos, at least my observation of this community, is that those are practicing firms, but you can't sell them. You can merge them, you can close them, but you can't sell them. So a solo has to be, really careful about his future, what he's going to do. Otherwise, he's going to wind up walking into a wall and, won't be there the next day.
You're right. Our firm has furnishings and fixtures and equipment, but really that's not worth a lot. And the old books that are on the shelves, they're not worth much. So what do you really got? I mean, you've got, you got your clients, you've got your client list, you've got your contacts, and most importantly, you've got your reputation. And so that's something that, well, I think my reputation is worth a lot. It's really hard to sell or, transfer that to a third party, and a third party doesn't really want to buy it, and they don't want to pay you for it. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to pass it on to a child or a family member. And well, I don't think I went through that analysis quite, when I was mid-60, but looking back on it, it makes an awful lot of sense for a solo or for a small firm.
Yeah, it's a risky moment, and trying to find an associate in the marketplace or any other action is fraught with risk. So this is what I would like to say is a machaya. A machaya in Yiddish means a really, really, really good thing.
Okay.
So Jeremy, there had to be a moment, okay, when your dad said to you, Jeremy, actually, we were just kidding before, but now it's serious. I want you to come down there. I want you to, report in at 8 o'clock in the morning and start doing some real work. Do you remember that moment? Did you have a meeting? Did he just call you on the phone? Did you drop this over dinner? What happened?
I can't remember if there was ever that moment. Can you remember anything?
No, I might have been away on vacation, and I said, Jeremy, this might be a propitious time for you to start practice. I don't know whether you were licensed at the time, but I don't think it was a great moment in time. Yeah.
This is evolution. This is
evolution.
not a moment, it's an
Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the evolution it's an interesting process, evolution.
Yes.
I mean, Darwin thought it was, and I do also, but, it starts out by having your son in the office, and you're so worried that you have to supervise him at every moment. And then after 2 or 3 years, it evolves that there's less supervision. And now I have this sense that I'm being supervised.
Yeah. And he's saying, Dad, are you sure you want me to do that? There is a better way, Dad.
Yeah, so I think that's transition or evolution, as you put it. I'd say that, it's definitely at play.
Yeah. But there was one day when you actually walked in the office, sat down behind a desk, started practicing.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I've actually taken over like the, what do you call it, back office stuff. So all the accounting, all the books, taken all of that over as well. So really learn a lot about that.
Yeah, well, have to.
Yeah.
It's one of those burdens, especially in a small firm or so. So did you know what you were getting into at the time? I mean, or were there surprises along the way?
Generally, I had an idea what I was getting into, definitely. But, the first couple of years getting phone calls and I guess talking like I knew what was going on.
Hey, we all went through that. Oh my God, what do I say now?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, with our firm, I feel like I have a lot more client contact than people my age working at larger firms, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that the economic deal you were going to get when you walked in, or was that something you trusted to the evolution?
Definitely trusted to evolution.
Were you going to be a partner? An associate? What?
Good question. I don't think
We got to work that out soon.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've resolved that yet.
I don't think we've resolved it, definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, he's doing great, and he does very well with dealing with the clients. But we have one advantage in our firm. First, our first names are very close,
Mm-hmm.
so they're not sure very often whether they're dealing with Jeremy or Jeffrey. Yeah, so that's very advantageous. And
You can fool them every time.
Yeah, most of the time we can fool them. And the other thing is, what has happened is that our voices on the telephone sound very similar. So that works to our advantage.
We're going to get to a list of advantages.
Yeah.
For you individually, each of you, and then for your clientele in a minute. We're going to take a short break. We are really enjoying this discussion.
Yeah,
thank you
you.
so much, guys, for coming around for it. That's Jeff Grad and his son Jeremy Grad in the Grad Law Firm here in Life in the Law, where we're talking about law practice, a family affair, otherwise known as keeping the firm in the family. We'll be right back.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, and on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevelin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at Think Tech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're having a grand time with Jeff Grad and Jeremy Grad, the Grad Law Firm here in the Davies Pacific Center. What's your suite number?
1800.
1800. Great, great number. Okay, and we're talking about law practice, a family affair, otherwise known as keeping the firm in the family, here on Life in the Law. So, what I want to try to portray to our viewers is how your firm and how your father-son relationship makes a different kind of firm than you would find with strangers. And I wonder if you could try to get a grasp on that.
Well, I think there's a lot of trust between family members. There's no reluctance to share the numbers, essentially, in the books, which is really important. We share the results and how we can improve on them. We also share our clients, almost probably to a fault. We both do the work for similar clients, although I'm happy to relate that it's evolving that some of our parents are now coming directly to Jeremy, and even their children, who are now working age, are finding Jeremy as their lawyer. So that's really pleasing to me. And otherwise, we probably we have an awful lot of give and take on most files. We try to review each other's work before it goes out. I would say for the most part, maybe I'm not as critical as to my son as I might be to another associate, but I think we have a pretty open relationship, criticism and the like, and it works both ways. So it's been pretty good. I think that's something that family practice is a much more relaxed one, at least. Maybe I'm a relaxed guy and Jeremy is to begin with, but we find that the practice is pretty good. What else do we do together, Jared, that we might do, maybe I wouldn't do in the case of a non-family member?
I think it's really easy to just discuss any issue with you. I mean, I could put my feet up and have a very candid discussion with you, more so than someone who isn't my dad, definitely. So I think that's beneficial to our practice, to our clients.
Well, let me offer that it does suggest that you have to start out with a good father-son relationship. Not every father-son could do this, am I right?
Oh, yeah, I think, at least I think that's true. You think the same, Jared?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's also an important thing, like where we're going to go to lunch that day. That's one thing about having
You
a family
also have
member.
lunch together? You
Yeah,
spend the whole day in the office and then have lunch?
Yeah, it's quite, and from time to time, we actually have a firm retreat. And the firm retreat with only a two-man firm, father, son, sometimes it ends up on the golf course. I mean, those are things that might not happen if you didn't have a family member within the firm. So it is easy. It's easy in that sense, dealing with a family member.
I have to ask this question, though, Jeff. Of course, in an ordinary, non-related firm, there's tension. It's the nature of a firm. It's the nature of law practice. I mean, it's one of the most tense life experiences you can have, because people are asking you to be their instrument for something and do sometimes aggressive things and all that. And then sometimes you have to worry about every possible, bad thing that could happen. So it's tense, this nature of law practice. So you guys ever have tension?
I think our personalities and also the nature of our practice is we're not really that tense. I feel like, right?
Yeah.
You're really
I
your
feel the
father's
same.
son, aren't you?
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons that our practice is mostly transactional. It's not litigious. And I wouldn't say, sometimes our work is time sensitive, but I think at least over time, the more it's time sensitive things I've tried to pass on to Jared.
There it is.
But I think that the less time sensitive, the more global issues, I would call them, and maybe things that aren't quite so time sensitive, I'd be more apt to spend the time on. But I think just the nature of our personalities is such, and the nature of our work is such, that attention doesn't run very high.
Yeah, but you have an underlying, may I say again, evolution going on within the context of the firm. I mean, the name of the game is succession at the end of the day. The name of the game is he's trying to teach you all that he's learned in the past 200 years. And you're trying to learn it in a way so that all the clientele will see you as a natural successor to your dad. So this is really a very important process. And how far down the track are we on this? In other words, if you stop practicing tomorrow, Thursday, would this carry on fine?
I think it would, because, of course, we're in our 7th year. But I think I don't think in the 2nd year it would have happened. But it is an evolution of dealing with your clients. And before, the clients, after a while, there's some advantages of dealing with a younger member of the
But
firm.
true, clients like to have
Yeah.
vitality in the law firm. They
Yeah.
really like that.
So I think, having your son or having a child in the firm with you, normally if there's going to be about a 30-year difference in age between, just by the nature of demography and when people are born. And, it's not surprising that even the older clients are happier a lot of times for certain matters dealing with the younger guy. The younger guy gives a lot of enthusiasm that might not otherwise be in the firm. And a lot of people tell us that when I brought Jerry into the firm, that the appearance of our firm improved dramatically, so that now we're in the upper middle group of handsomeness.
Yeah,
of
and
our firm.
much more hair on the average.
Yeah, on average, we did improve our hair as well. Yeah.
So how do you find this to be, Jeremy? I mean, there you are, a young man with clients who are in, the next, the older generation, your dad's clients. How do you cope with that? There they are, they're looking at you, they're expecting the same kind of wisdom that your dad can give them. And there's this moment where you ask yourself, do I have that yet? Can I do that? Can I engage this client in the same way that my dad does? I mean, how do you deal with that?
It's a good question. I mean, every day I can learn something new from my dad, and I try to do that every day, whether it be in the law, or dealing with clients, or running a business. So just try to learn as much as possible, and kind of hang on by the seat of my pants. That's not the right word, but
So, it's an educational process.
right.
Yeah.
And every firm is an educational, it really should be if it wants to succeed in educational process. But clients, and I can tell you, my firm went through this many times. Clients don't like that you should spend a lot of office conference time educating and billing for it. So how do you handle that part?
Well, I would say we're not aggressive about that. I know when you go into a larger law firm, sometimes there might be a partner and a couple associates there, and suddenly, the client is looking at $600 or $700 an hour, and I know that there's a lot of resentment that gets built up on account of it. But I think we acknowledge that there's a lot of learning process, and let's not pile on. So we really are pretty aggressive about not piling on, and it may show that we did have conferences on our billing, but we can adjust the billing appropriately. There's no question that some clients, no matter what Jeremy does, are still going to think that I really respect old Jeff, and he's the guy who's given the advice, and I don't want to have to talk to the younger associate. But there are some people like that
Sure,
don't want to
sure.
deal with
Everybody's
Jeremy.
different.
Yeah, everyone's different. But I think overall, it's been a positive effect having Jerry in the
Yeah,
firm.
so it's a trust, you have your trust relationship with the client, and if you can bring your son into that, well, that's fabulous. But you mentioned earlier, I think you did, Jeff, that on some points now, you're not teaching him, he's teaching you, and I want to ask, what are you teaching him? Well, give me sort of a conceptual example of the kinds of things you're teaching your dad. There are new ways to run law firms. There's a new generation of law firms out there, different. And I think it's more accentuated on the mainland than here, but I wonder if you're giving him input that changes the dynamic, the nature, the presentation of the firm.
I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is that certainly you're much more adept with the computerization of the firm and the telecommunication aspects of the firm. I mean, we're doing stuff from afar and from distance, and maybe even not even in the United States, but we're traveling. That really I have to look to him to set up, because I haven't been that experienced with it.
So bringing the firm into the 21st century.
Yeah, I would say our productivity, things like producing the documentation and things that are primarily go back to the computer, definitely he's much further advanced on
That's critical
that than
too
I
these
am.
days.
Yeah. And then as far as substance is concerned, Jeremy had done some time with the Department of Planning and Permitting from the city and county, and we do a lot of work that's based on land use ordinance and permitting and that bit. And yeah, there's no question that Jeremy knows the people over there, that he knows the ordinances, and that's something that I didn't have as much familiarity with. So I have to look to him for that aspect of the substantive work that we do, primarily permitting. And that's something he's really added quite a bit to the firm.
How about in something like fee agreement models? There are changes happening in the legal community about that. Not a lot of them, but some of them. And you get the idea that, as we go down into the next generation, there'll be more of that, flat fee, that kind of thing, different. Have you gotten to that? Is that part of the passage through the generations? I don't want to give you any ideas you haven't had.
I like working on a flat fee, definitely. I'm not always looking at the clock and filling out the timesheets. Who are you going to give the timesheets to? Me. So yeah, I think we've tried to do as much as possible on a flat fee basis.
Good. That's very modern. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, part of the reason was, as you alluded to before, the fact that we might be talking about a lot of these things or having internal conferences, and we don't want to get into that with the client or have to bill the client. And we also have a sense that we do a lot of work that's it's typical work. We've done it a lot of times, and we know what it should cost, and we think we know what the client would think is fair as well.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of internal conferences, I think we ought to have one now.
Okay.
We're going to go to a short break and have an internal conference here in the Grad Law Firm. That's Jeff Grad and his son Jeremy. The Grad Law Firm in 841 Bishop Street. We're talking about law practice and family affair here on Life in the Law, keeping up keeping the firm in the family. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm your host on Think Tech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, Think Tech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Hi, my name is Seymour Kazimirski. I have a show called Seymour's World on Think Tech Hawaii. Our show is about opening minds and facilitating conversations. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. I have no idea who our guests are going to be, but I guarantee you we're going to have lots and lots of fun. Aloha from Seymour's World.
Okay, we're back. We're live with Jeff Grad and Jeremy Grad, father and son, in the Grad Law Firm in the Davies building. We're talking about law practice, a family affair, keeping the firm in the family. It's really a nice thing to happen. So I guess that we've had this book on the table. We need to identify this book. I'm going to leave the honors to you, Jeff. You're the author of the book. Well, in fact, you're both the author of the book. All right, nice work.
That's right. That's another project father and son can do, but this is a book. It's called The New Purchase Contract Made Simple, and it's really done for the, it was prepared for work by real estate brokers and real estate salesmen who are trying to prepare the sales contract. And while it's a great book, and all of you should have copies of it, you know, it's primarily a way to introduce Jeremy to our real estate clients, mostly the real estate brokers, and it's been quite successful. But it's, you know, it's another bottom line thing. The goal here is to ensure that your reputation is retained, and that it's passed on to your son. And of course, the son is a co-author with me in the book, and suddenly he's under that same umbrella and the success from it. So yeah, I mean, part of the law practice involves not just the substantive work, but just the constant tilling of the field and bringing in the clients and all.
Well, there comes a moment, I'm sure, where somebody walks in the door and he says, Jeremy, I'm here to see you. I don't want to see your dad. You're my lawyer, and I'm your client. Does that happen?
It does. My billable rate is about 100 or so bucks less than his, so clients appreciate
Oh,
that.
that's what, okay, they know. No, but you're past that point in the continuum now. You're you know, getting your own clients, maybe from your own contacts, from your own schoolmates, whatever it is, and
Yeah,
they're coming to
definitely.
you directly.
Yep.
Not just off your old man. That's good.
Yeah, well, because, you know, they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the
And they're right about
tree,
that.
and we're trying to take advantage of that old idiom.
Well, I wanted to, you know, put it in larger perspective for a minute. You know, Jeff, when you and I started practicing, there were a lot of solo lawyers, and I think that was a defining point of the bar in those days, in the 70s. And then, you know, firms got bigger. Big firms got way bigger. A lot of medium-sized firms, you know, held their own, and there were fewer solo lawyers. So at the moment before Jeremy joined you and you were solo, you were in a diminishing crowd, I would say. I don't know if you agree. And so where's it going now? Are we going to see more solo lawyers, and why?
I don't know whether you're going to see more. It's a hard way to earn a living being a solo and having to do all the aspects of law. But on the other hand, there's a lot of these functions that may be non-legal that can be farmed out to non-lawyers. So I think the paraprofessionals go a long way to assisting the solos of the small firms.
You guys have paraprofessionals?
We do have paraprofessionals. So I would say, and the other aspect certainly is the revolution in telecommunication and the revolution just in the use of the computers. And, you know, there are solo practitioners out in the town right now that don't even maintain an office. I mean, they're basically working off their iPads and their, their Apple computers, and they're traveling, so I would say that, and actually one of the things we notice is that we're now competing for some of what I would say are rather modest clients with some of the larger firms who in the old days would have been representing the big five and people like that, and the big banks, and as the banks have brought people in-house, and the big five or whatever's left of them have people in-house. The so-called larger firms have diminished in size, and we find them sort of competing with us, or we're now competing with them, and we're not doing badly. So I think that there's room for it. I think there's room for the smaller practitioner. I think some people would be good at it, and some people don't like to be alone. They'd like to have a partner or a partner or two, and so it's part of it. I think is your personal makeup.
Yeah. But I mean, looking at it from a business point of view, a legal point of view, an economic point of view, it sounds to me, just in the four corners of this conversation, that a firm of two or three is better than a firm of one, because you have backup. You have somebody to talk to. I mean, I don't know how you guys must feel the same way I feel about it, which is namely that you need to talk to someone about your legal conclusions. You need to let somebody look at your written work.
Yeah.
If you're all alone, you're just a mammal after all. Sorry. And you really need somebody to bounce it back and forth intellectually.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Jim?
I love having the ability to bounce stuff off of you, definitely. I don't know anything else, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what it would be like.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important part of lawyering, especially if there's something that's out of the ordinary. It really helps to have another set of eyes on it, and I think as I've gotten older, I like to do not only a set of eyes, but I like to wait a day or two before I actually,
Yes.
after I've done it the night before, I want it to rest and permeate.
Yes.
We decide whether I really want to send it out on the next day or the day after. So I think, I think it's a good idea to have more than a solo in that respect, certainly.
So where do you see this firm going? Do you have a vision about where this family firm will go? I mean, how about grad, and and so forth. We'll do the joke later.
All right.
I'll do the joke now.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a receptionist in a law firm, and somebody calls, and the receptionist says what the receptionist is supposed to say, the name of the law firm, Grad, and Grad. And the person on the other end says, may I help you? The person on the other end says, I'd like to speak to Mr. Grad. And the receptionist says, he's not in. Okay, I'd like to speak to Mr. Grad.
Oh, he's out sick today.
He's out sick today.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I'll talk to Mr. Grad.
Speaking. So it does happen. Yeah. I don't know.
In the same kind of voice.
Yeah, we have the same. That's right. I don't know. I would say it's Jeremy that will be making the decisions probably 5 years hence. But I can see that that Jeremy would certainly bring in other people. At this stage in life, he probably doesn't have a child that would be capable, because there isn't a child yet. But
You have to wait 30 years.
You have to wait 30 years. So I would say that, before you get out to that 30th year, I can see a partnership. And in my case, it was a partnership for several years. I think I think it's a good way to practice law in a small group of people. I'd say until you have a child, a partnership form is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's got its advantages and some of its risks.
One of the other things you mentioned, an idea comes from one of the other things you mentioned, talking about competing with larger firms. Well, larger firms by definition are more full-service firms. They're not boutique. You guys are real estate boutique. That's your area, and you're known through the community, through the state, and outside the state for that. I mean, I can tell you that. So, but, is the future of a firm like yours going to stay boutique? Are you going to grow to a size where you need to go or decide to go more full service? Are you going to go into other things? Or is the grad firm always going to be real estate? What are your thoughts about that?
What do you think, Jer? You'll probably be there.
He's a good one to answer
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it's all I know right now. So if I have to learn something else, I better get at it.
Yeah.
Of course, that assumes that it would just be you. I mean, one of the options is to bring in a partner that does have those other skills, and
Right.
I've
Yeah.
done that from time to time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way I could see that evolving. But I also find that, there are a lot of sort of affiliated people to us that maybe aren't lawyers, that we deal a lot with, like land planners, and we deal with survey people, and there are people with an awful lot of knowledge substantively of what we do. And we don't need those people in-house. We don't need a planner in-house, but it sure be
Able to have one available.
Yeah, and so that's part of, I can see practice maybe evolving where you have I wouldn't say an exclusive, but relationships with
Yeah.
other people who might not be lawyers, but certainly affiliated substantively with what we do.
I think he's telling us something. I think what he's telling us is that in a world of increasing complexity in our society, you want to take advantage of your boutique expertise. And as, say, real estate gets more complex, and undoubtedly it will, for so many reasons, just think about the environmental laws, just by themselves, just that issue. You may have a greater leverage if you stay boutique, but drill down and be a further expert in all the new areas, rather than try to learn something new and be superficial about it. I just really interesting thought that comes out of that.
Yeah.
So are there other father-son relationship lawyers in the state, or mother-daughter, if you will, whatever?
Well, the Matsubaras come to mind. They do real property types of things, mostly permitting. I'm sure there are others as well. A number of family law practitioners, I think, have their children with them. And then, of course, some larger firms have anti-nepotism provision. I wouldn't,
That's just the opposite,
That's the
180
opposite,
out from where
yeah.
we are today.
But that, in a larger firm, bringing in children of the founders also makes, it's another kettle of fish that you don't want to get involved with. But we don't have an anti-nepotism
I hope so, and I
provision.
hope you don't adopt one. Nothing we've said here suggests you should adopt one. Well, what about the community? I mean, in many ways, you so often in Hawaii, you see somebody by the name, Smith, and you figure out, that's the son of Smith. And it's a small town, and we know who that is, and he happens to be doing the same thing. It's sort of the land of dynasty. Do you think that's likely to increase in the future in Hawaii in the real estate, rather in the law business? Are we going to see more dynastic law firms, or maybe fewer?
Gee, I never think of that as a dynastic. You mean dynastic in the sense of a
Father,
Carl
son,
Smith
down
type?
the family.
Oh, down in the family? Gee, I don't know whether that, just not sure. I mean, I can see that there are certain incentives, particularly as you get a little older, to bring in a child. I think a 30-year difference, you bring in a child is one thing, but, within that 30 years, I'm not so sure that, you bring in other family members, but you could.
Yeah.
I had a hard time foreseeing it.
Yeah. Well, what I get out of this is this discussion. We have these luncheon programs. We ask people to summarize everything that's been said in one word. My word would be, for this program, efficiency. A father-son law firm is well more efficient than the conventional kind. But what is your word? Do you have a word to summarize this discussion?
One word, I'd say it's just advantageous. It's uplifting. It's good. I guess that was 2 words.
Okay, well, you're entitled.
Okay.
People take liberties. It's okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeremy? You get to close now.
I like uplifting. I mean, it's been great working with my dad. I get to see him all the time, every day, and he's, besides my wife, probably my best friend, and we can, it's been great.
Yeah. The other word that comes to mind is wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you,
you.
Jeff. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks
So
for
nice
having
to
us.
talk to you. Jeff Grad, Jeremy Grad, the Grad Law Firm, in law practice, family affair, keeping the firm in the family here on Life in the Law. It's been fun. Thanks, guys.